Hey y'all, my name's Jen. I'm a health and life coach on a mission to empower women, and this season I call the messy middle. We believe it's never too late to dream your wildest dreams and to build lives freed from the shoulds and have-tos. Here, we talk to ourselves like we do our girlfriends and our sisters and daughters. I will share stories and resources with lots of encouragement and a little bit of tough love to drive you toward action. In this podcast, we talk about everything: career, relationships, motherhood, and health. So grab your sneakers and let's go, because she's wild and freed. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of She's Wild and Freed. I am so happy you are here with me today, and I just thank you for pressing play to check out this week's episode. So you probably saw in the title, we will be talking about grief today. And this is deeply personal, so be patient with me as I walk through this story. And we will talk about how to navigate, or at least how I am navigating a new season in my life. And I hope that this will bring you some comfort or give you some insight into whatever it is you're going through right now, if you are experiencing a time in grief, or you can share it with a friend if you know that they may need some support or just something to listen to as they're navigating this. So I have mentioned, I think a couple of times in previous episodes, that I'm going through a transition period. My family is, and I won't share, of course, the details of this because I want to protect those who are involved, but just share with you what I'm experiencing and going through. So currently, I am going through a separation and ultimately divorce from my partner. For those of you who don't know me personally, we were married for almost 24 years, have 3 children, and of course built a life together like many of us do when we are married or in a partnership with someone. And you know, I've been through periods where I've lost someone, a grandparent, or lost a job. Maybe it was due to my decision, but and many of you, I think, can relate to that, you know, losing a loved one, losing a relationship, a job, maybe a family pet. So if you are going through a period like this too, I certainly am here with you. You're not alone. And I want to just share some things that I'm experiencing, some things I'm learning, again, in hopes that it will help you or help a friend or loved one as you navigate this time in your life. So first off, there is the guidance out there that talks about the 5 stages of grief. This guidance comes from Kubler-Ross. There are also 7 stages of grief, but for this purpose, we're going to talk about the 5 stages of grief. Definitely can Google this, and I want to say that it's not linear, at least what I'm experiencing. You know, I wouldn't say these are necessarily always in order, but it's a nice reference to say, oh, yeah, I'm going through that. And I didn't really realize that I was grieving the end of this relationship until I reached the depression or sadness phase. I definitely knew that I was experiencing some things as we unravel, these 24 years together. But I'll just list out those stages of grief to you all. So the first one is denial. This again can apply to when you're losing or you've lost something, or when you're going through a grieving period, you just deny that it's actually happening or that it did happen. Then the next stage is anger. Next up is bargaining. Next is depression. And then finally, acceptance. And it's interesting, and I hope you can relate to this as well, that I kind of go in and out of some of these stages, move forward, and then go back some as I'm processing. So as I mentioned earlier, I didn't realize that I was grieving until I hit the depression phase or the sadness. And I don't want to say this lightly, that I know some of you experience depression, maybe you've been diagnosed with that. So I'm not taking that lightly. Even my therapist had mentioned the word grief or grieving to me as I've been processing with her in our sessions, but again, I didn't quite realize what I was really dealing with or going through until I hit that phase where I've just been really sad. And, the different things that I'm grieving or just feeling into sometimes just hit me like a ton of bricks. And you probably saw that in the title of this episode, where I'm doing just fine. I'm living life. I'm doing things I enjoy. And then something just hits me. But that is how grief is. You may be just living your life, and maybe it's been several years now that you've processed through and you reach that acceptance phase, and then something hits you like a ton of bricks. So that's what I've been experiencing as I've been processing and working through this. I hope that's helpful to you, or something that you may want to look into as you're going through something. So again, it's Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. I titled this episode Grief, Sitting with It, Walking Through It, Running from It, and then a ton of bricks, because that really is the experience that I'm having. And maybe you can relate to this. You specifically are going through where sometimes you do just want to sit in the emotion, and the emotions could be vast, and there's a spectrum where sometimes you're feeling great. You're like, it's good. For my example, specifically with divorce, it's like, okay, this is the best thing for everyone. Yes, it's painful and at times, but seeing our kids doing well and the experiencing we're having, sitting with the decision that was made and being proud or happy about it is something that I've done. I have also allowed myself to sit with that sadness and really feel into what I'm feeling. Walking through it, it's literally processing the emotions, the experiencing. Even the way I've addressed stress or bad feelings or things that I didn't want to deal with, I've run from it. I've avoided. That really is my style. I try to divert. I've tried to find other things to do and literally run from the problem. So if you're there, if you're feeling like you just don't want to think about that thing or that person or the situation, you literally are running from something, know that you're not alone with that either. I think that's really natural. It's not something you want to do the whole time, because eventually it's going to come back to you, as I had that happen to me, where I get hit with that feeling, the emotion, whether it be sadness or stress, or, one of the things that happened to me recently is I processed through something and got through the sad time. And then I started really feeling a lot of anxiety, just worry, having those physical feelings of tightness in my chest and having trouble breathing. And again, I'm just trying to relate to you that that's normal and it's okay. And whatever you're feeling right now within your process is right for you. One thing I talked to my therapist about this week, actually. No, it was last week. Last week was, I'm just worried I'm going to stay stuck. I'm going to stay stuck in these emotions, feeling down, looping in my head, what if, or mistakes that were made, and those sort of things. And she said, and I'm not going to say it exactly the way she did. I wish I could remember exactly, but she was like, well, you can't be stuck, because if we all got stuck in our emotions, we would just be happy all the time, or get stuck in happiness. And that really resonated with me, because it's true. I think we would choose to stay stuck in joy and elation and happiness and just having fun. And we don't get stuck there either. It's an ebb and flow. It's a continuum. She shared one thing with me that was an emotions wheel. And it had all the different emotions that we can experience as human beings, and helps give names to how you're feeling. You may think you're feeling angry, but then when you drill down a little bit, there's some other ways to describe your feelings or emotions. And that's been really helpful for me as well. So one thing I realized really over the last maybe year or to 2 years, that avoidance, that running from my feelings, my emotions, what's going on in my life and in the collective life that we're living, I wasn't allowing myself to feel, even to the point that I became numb. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't relaxed. I wasn't anything. So that emotions wheel that she shared with me has just been so helpful, again, to put words to what I'm feeling, to know that it's normal to feel all these different emotions. Again, just processing through it. So if you are in a state where you don't feel, or you're avoiding feeling, I just encourage you to, if you can, reach out to a counselor if you're not already in therapy. Do some research on Google if you're not ready for that, or you can't pay for therapy right now. I certainly know that isn't available to everyone, but the human experience is to experience all those emotions. And I'm still learning that. I'm still working on how to allow myself to feel and not avoid. There's beauty in that. So I encourage you to seek help if you are at that point where you're feeling numb or numbing out with things like alcohol, drugs, Netflix, scrolling, other things that can help you avoid those feelings. So things that I'm working with, things that are helpful for me, I hope that maybe one of these could help you as well, is meditation. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that I like to give to you all some guided meditations throughout this podcast. I also like to listen to them. They're helpful for me to sink in, listen to myself, allow my thoughts to flow in and out, and even focusing in on whatever the guidance is coming from the person doing the meditation. I'm also doing something called grounding. So if you haven't heard about this, it's when you go into nature. You can do it in your yard. Of course, you could go out into a trail or the beach, whatever you have access to. Take your shoes off, socks off, just go barefoot and ground in, literally grounding into the ground. I always close my eyes. It helps me if I turn off one of my senses to really feel into my feet on the ground, become aware of my breath. It's amazing the things I start to hear because I close my eyes. I can hear birds, the wind. In my neighborhood, there's traffic right there, but I can hear more clearly. And again, just grounding in with my feet on the ground. Yoga, another way of processing emotions, is getting into your body, getting out of your head and into your body and moving. So yoga is another thing that I have been doing on my own. I've also gone to some classes. Running. So I mentioned on a previous podcast that I'm running again. And yes, sometimes it does help me run from the emotions. I know I've got to process, but I've just got to get out again, move my body. It does help me process my thoughts through that action. So running's been really helpful for me, both physically, but also mentally. Journaling. It's interesting how we have these thoughts. We're thinking about things. We may be meditating or praying on them, but speaking out what's going on or writing it down is a whole other level of processing the situation, things going on in your life, the grief process. So journaling is another thing that's been really helpful for me. And then finally, crying. So just to call myself out here a little bit, I have really been holding back on crying over things. And this is not just through my divorce, but also through other situations in life. I feel the cry coming up, my hot face getting hot, the tears starting to come, and I would stop myself, not allow myself to cry. So then going back to what I said earlier about avoiding or running from those emotions. So I have been letting that come, letting the tears flow, and it's been really therapeutic for me. So if any of those resonate with you, or you think, I want to try this grounding thing, or, I bought that journal back in January when I said I was going to start journaling, it's blank, or I've written a few pages. Maybe you try pulling it out and processing through writing things out. It's been really helpful for me. I don't do all of those things in one day, the meditation, grounding, yoga, running, journaling, crying. So don't feel like you have to jump in and do them all if you're thinking, man, these all sound great, because it may not work for you, but it may be something on that list I hope could help you. So this episode is what I call a free form. I'm just talking out things that I've been thinking about, things that I'm processing through, and I hope that it's helpful to you. Maybe you specifically are going through a tough time or experiencing grief, you've lost something, or you're transitioning into a new phase of your life. So you're grieving that old life and shifting into something new. Whatever it is, I just want you to know you are not alone. Grief is messy. It's not a linear, you go from point A to point B all the way to Z, and then you're done, because things will come up and hit you like a ton of bricks. The other thing I didn't mention, but I think I should, is that throughout this process that you're going through, you may feel a sense of guilt that, man, I've been doing pretty well and I'm feeling good and life's good, the kids are good, whatever it is in your life. And then you're like, oh, I feel bad because I'm not thinking about that thing or that person or the situation. And that guilt comes in. And that's really a big part of the grief process too, that I didn't mention. It's not necessarily in that Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief, but know that feeling guilty about living your life, experiencing good things is natural and normal. But also know that you deserve to have the good things, and you deserve to be happy and to live your life. It doesn't mean you're not loving or remembering that person who may have passed on, or your pet, that situation, that relationship. That doesn't mean that at all. But what it means is that you're a human and you feel all the emotions. So feeling guilty because you're living your life is normal, but just know that you deserve the life of your dreams. You deserve happiness and great relationships, connections. You deserve to eat good food. You deserve to do fun things. You deserve it all. And know that I'm here with you. I hope you enjoyed this free-form episode. If you know someone who could benefit from some of the information I shared, or the personal story that they can relate to, please share it with them. I would love to get this information or this story out to as many people as possible, because it's a real thing, and we are human. We're going to experience all types of emotions, and I am here with you. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you feel free to take action toward building the life of your dreams. If something in this episode resonated with you, I would so appreciate it if you would text it to a girlfriend so she can hear the message as well. Until next time, stay wild.